Hey friends! Welcome to another episode of Bible Q&A, where we'll be discussing the keys to becoming cunning Christians. When Jesus sent his disciples out in Matthew chapter 10, he gave them this advice, among others. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Matthew chapter 10 verse 16. Being harmless as doves is pretty self-explanatory, with all the talk about turning the other cheek and loving your enemies. But how can Christians be wise as serpents? How can Christians be cunning? Well, the most important strategy is analyzing the environment. What environments foster the spread of the faith? What are some environments that will be harmful to our faith? A Christian always tries to find safe territory for their faith and their relationship with their God. For example, Paul found himself before the Jewish council in Acts chapter 23 verses 1 to 6. He knew that they could sentence him for blasphemy, as they had done to Jesus in Matthew chapter 26 verse 65. Thus, he exploited a doctrinal division in their ranks to escape their clutches. He said he believed in resurrection, as his fellow Pharisees did, and the Sadducees, who didn't, flew up in arms. The guards escorted him out of the ensuing chaos and put him in a Roman prison, where he would face a more forgiving judge. Also, Abraham in particular was a very cunning Christian. When he and his wife settled in Egypt for a time in Genesis chapter 13, he knew that the people there would kill to have his wife. Literally. So he downplayed his spousal relationship to Sarah and emphasized the sibling relationship, so they would let him be. And when it was time for Isaac to find a wife, Abraham told his servant not to find a Canaanite woman, because she and her neighbors would eventually convince him to serve Canaanite gods. This strategy was eventually set into law in Deuteronomy chapter 7 verses 4 to 5. For they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. So will the anger of the Lord be kindled against you, and destroy thee suddenly. But thus shall ye deal with them. Ye shall destroy their altars, and break down their images, and cut down their groves, and burn their graven images with fire. Instead, Abraham's servant was asked to bring a Mesopotamian woman to Canaan, so they would both be religious outsiders in a foreign land. Another important task is to use material resources to advance God's purpose. That was what the wise but unjust steward did in Luke chapter 16 verses 1 to 8. He used the resources he had at his disposal during the last month of his stewardship to make friends who would help him after he got fired. And so Jesus told his disciples, "And the Lord commended the unjust steward, because he had done wisely. For the children of this world are in their generation wiser than the children of light." Luke chapter 18 verse 6. Essentially, non-Christians are better at using money to further their dreams than Christians are at furthering God's purpose. But how can Christians use their resources to further God's purpose? Well, they can print pamphlets that explain how the Bible is relevant to people today, instead of ones that just explain basic Bible doctrine. They can do charity for people in need, encouraging them to believe in their faith. They can help a couple they know with engagement expenses, encouraging them to tie the knot. That was Jesus' whole mission with his miracles, according to the end of the book of John. And many other signs truly did Jesus in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book. But these are written, that ye might believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing ye might have life through his name. Jesus used his resource, the Holy Spirit, to spread the gospel throughout Israel. However, as you are doing this, make sure you don't fall for traps. There are some people in your environment who will seek to derail you on your journey. Jesus described them as wolves in sheep's clothing in Matthew chapter 7 verse 15, and Paul described them as transformed angels of light in 2 Corinthians chapter 11 verse 15, who are really just demons in disguise. Both Ezra and Nehemiah had to deal with such dubious figures. In Ezra chapter 4 verse 2, Judah's rivals offered to help build the temple, hoping to sabotage the reconstruction process. But Judah's chiefs refused the offer, since Cyrus had already provided them with enough resources and support to do it themselves. Also, in Nehemiah chapter 6 verse 10, Shemaiah asked Nehemiah to hide in the temple because his enemies would come after him in the night. But he knew that Shemaiah just wanted to shame him, given the fate of the last person who tried that, Joab, in 1 Kings chapter 2, verse 34. He would be seen as a coward who used God as a shield instead of fighting his enemies head-on. One big trap people face nowadays is division and strife. As the saying goes, united we stand, divided we fall. And as Jesus said, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and a house divided against a house falleth. Luke chapter 11, verse 17. The easiest way for Satan to weaken the church was to divide it, so new converts now have no idea where the truth lies. Even within a particular denomination, Satan can start fights to weaken church unity. Envy, comparison, and jealousy are his most powerful tools. James, recognizing his strategy, told us, "But if ye have bitter envying and strife in your hearts, glory not, and lie not against the truth. For where envying and strife is, there is confusion and every evil work." James chapter 3, verses 14 and 16. If Paul said that different people have different gifts and different levels of them in 1 Corinthians chapter 12 and 2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 20, and God himself said that not every Christian would be rich in Deuteronomy chapter 15 verse 11, then should someone get mad when others are succeeding and they aren't? Is it really their fault? Instead, Christians should try to live peacefully with one another, which is the most cunning strategy of all. Paul explained why this was such a smart strategy in Romans. If it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, Vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. Romans chapter 12, verses 18 and 19. If God is the only one who can take vengeance on people, then you can skip the arguments and save your energy for other more beneficial projects. And that is the end of this episode of Bible Q&A, where we talked about the keys to becoming cunning Christians. Thank you for listening. If you like this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with others.